Hey folks, it's Tony from the 724. It's a beautiful fall day here in southwestern Pennsylvania. This is the last of what they call Indian summer. We're not going to get any more good weather past this day. This is going to be the last of the sunshine and good weather. We could have really used this tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be 51 and chilly. It's going to be raining all night. Tires are going to be cold, surface is going to be cold, everybody going to be cold. There'll be a lot of spinning going on. But, you know us, we race. Like I said, rain or shine, we race.
The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. No sleeping aloud, though, you just get a glance. Don't try to swing game, yo, just let the girl dance. The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. You can watch a show blow from a distance, but give us some space on, let the girl dance.
Hey everybody, welcome to SLOTRODS. I'm Tony Malik.
And I'm Randy Silvas.
And we're here for the WPSRA Halloween 2020 Shootout.
We have 36 cars competing here today. And in this episode, we'll be covering the first of two heats in round one.
With these cold track conditions, it's definitely going to be a day's worth of drivers' races.
Yeah, I think keeping them from spinning is going to prove to be difficult. And as you can see on our board, the drivers are all driving multiple cars. It's going to be a lot of driving for the racers.
We'd like to apologize, folks, for the condition of the first four races, but a couple of our cameras weren't working earlier in the day. Today's tournament is going to start out with the big tire division.
First up, we have the Duster versus Pineapple Express, followed by Blue Max versus One Man's Poison. Next up, Ford Shelby number 2 versus Check Yourself, finishing with Big Red versus the Capo.
All right, let's get started.
First up, the green and gold 1970 Plymouth, owned by Keith Bean, simply called the Duster.
Versus the 1966 Dodge A1, called the Pineapple Express, owned and operated by Lewis Wingate. There's that Cracker Jack camera work we were talking about. Pineapple Express did have him come out of the hole, I could see that.
He did get a good jump on him.
And look at this gap coming across the finish line.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of that today with these conditions.
So the winner for the first race is Pineapple Express, and he will be moving on to round 2. First up for race 2, we have the completely custom flamed on green with the custom stacks 1955 Ford F100 called One Man's Poison.
Versus Kelly Calkins' green-eyed 1971 Plymouth GTX called Blue Max. It's black on blue, and she's sitting on a set of H&R foamy mags, a homespun aluminum frame, oversized gears, and a 40,000 RPM H&R motor. That'll get her moving.
Yep, let's get it to the line. Well, we're already money ahead. The camera's at the line. Oh, and there's One Man's Poison getting the jump.
I thought Blue Max was going to get him out of the hole.
Well, look at that gap coming across the finish line. I guess not.
Gotta be cold tracks, buddy.
And there's your winner, One Man's Poison, moving on to round 2.
Next up, we have our 1932 Ford drop-top coupe called Check Yourself, owned by Tony Mullock.
That's the first time I ever chopped a roof like that. Took about 1/4 of an inch out of it. And Check Yourself will be going up against the 1966 Ford Shelby GT number 2 car, owned by Brittany Wingate. And that's the same exact car that was featured in Ford vs. Ferrari, the movie. All right, let's get to the starting line.
Well, so much for the starting line, camera. I can see coming out of the dark, number 2 car has a big lead on it.
Oh man, that's a hell of a lead.
Looks to me like faster cars are going to be taking ducks out all day long.
Quack, quack. So of course that means that number 2 car will be moving on to the second round.
Our next competitor, the 1957 Keller Change Chrysler 300 called the Capo. It sits on a homespun aluminum frame, big foamy tires, and aggressive gears.
Going up against the 1967 Crimson Coronet called Big Red.
Ready? Yep.
Good. Ready? Ready?
Good, Dan.
Oh, that Coronet's way out on that Chrysler. And another big gap. Another duck heads south for the winner. So the big tire cars moving on will be the Pineapple Express, One Man's Poison, the 1966 Shelby GT number 2 car, and Big Red. And bringing on the small tires, Val versus Scully, Silver Streak versus Goldie, Phoenix versus Green Meanie, Beetlejuice versus the 52, and Shelby versus the Elephant. So let's get started.
Our next atrocity, one of my personal favorites. This late 60s Chevy Impala sitting on H&R everything, decked out in skulls end to end.
And this is my honey's 1955 Chevy Nomad. And it's sitting on H&R everything with oversized gears. I gave this to Kelly Calkins on Valentine's Day, so we call her Val.
Okay, let's see if we have a starting line camera this time.
Good, Dan.
Oh yeah, we got a starting line camera. And I think she got him out of the hole.
And she got him the rest of the way down the line, too.
Winner is Valentine. I think that classifies as another duck sent down the road. Oh, sorry, Randy. I forgot that's you.
It's alright, man. It's alright.
Alright, let's take a look at that start in slow motion again. Oh yeah, buddy. She had you straight away. She was gone at 60 feet.
And she wasn't giving it back either.
And that brings us to the 1967 Gold Chevelle called Goldie.
Versus Dan Sackandy in his Gen 3 Camaro called Silver Streak.
Okay, Silver Streak's off to a strong start and put a gap on Goldie coming down. I'd say by the 600-foot mark that race was over. And another duck flying south for the winner.
And the winner is Dan Sackandy and his Silver Streak.
You know, that's a one-of-a-kind design we have with that car. Dan took the peg that holds the car in the track and he moved it to the center of the car from the front of the car.
Well, seems to be working for him. First up, for race number 7, this 1949 Kelly Green Ford split-window shoebox coupe called the Green Meanie. It's a one-of-a-kind from its paint job to its blood-red eyes to that huge snorkel on the hood.
Versus the 1982 Chevrolet Corvette owned by Brittany Wingate called the Phoenix. There's that spinning we've been talking about. You see what the Green Meanie just did?
Yeah, that Corvette had so much better traction off the line.
The Phoenix had that one before it started.
I agree.
And so Brittany and her Phoenix will be moving on to the second round. This is one of my builds. This is called the 52. It's a 1952 Ford, and it's a reproduction of a car that my parents once owned. It's sitting on a homespun aluminum frame. The visor that's over top of the windshield was handmade by myself, and it's running tall gears with a Carrera 30,000 RPM motor.
Versus this unbeatable in most races, little pink beauty called Beetlejuice. She's compact, fast, and just cute as a bug, all pun intended.
And it does real well when you can keep it glued to the track.
Yeah, she has been known to flip a few times. Okay, let's get him to the starting line. Per usual, Beetlejuice comes out of the hole like a bullet.
Yeah, the 52 came out pretty hard too, but you see all that spinning going on.
Yeah, and I can see that gap too.
Yeah, rub it in, rub it in.
And our winner is Beetlejuice. Moving on to round 2.
And that brings us to our last race of the first heat. First up, Randy Silva's 1957 Chrysler 300, known as the Helephant.
You know, I got that body from you. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, don't thank me until we see how it runs.
Versus the 1963 Ford Cobra known as Shelby. She's driven by Michael Mack.
And Mike's off to the fast start.
And coming down the stretch, there's no hope for the Helephant. He was done from the start.
Yep, another gap and another duck. Moved on to Florida. And that means that Michael Mack and Shelby will be moving on to round 2. And that brings us to the end of the first heat.
Personally, I think all in all, with the weather conditions we had today, it turned out to be a pretty good race day.
If nothing else, we've seen 9 ducks fly south for the winter. That gets them out of the way. And that brings us to the end of round 1, heat number 1. Moving on to round 2 will be the Pineapple Express, One Man's Poison, the Shelby GT number 2 car, Big Red, Valentine, the Silver Streak, Phoenix, Beetlejuice, and Shelby. And here's your round 1 heat 2 races. The RT versus SOB, Ace of Spades versus the Lambo, Dank Nasty versus Charisse, Midnight Ride versus Venom, Magic 8 Ball versus the Deuce, Cannonball versus the Grape Ape, Jolly Rancher versus Why Not, Sheldon versus the Roadrunner, and AAA versus the Killer Nova. Let's get this party started.
Our first competitor for heat number 2 is that No Good Dirty SOB, owned by Tony Mullen. It's a 1970 Corvette Stingray, and it lives in the top 5 of the 724.
Versus the Tegrity Farms sponsored 1967 Dodge Coronet RT, simply called the RT, owned by Keith Bean.
Oh, they come off in perfect synchronicity, Tony.
Didn't stay that way for too long, though. Look at that gap that just comes off. That RT actually got me off the line, but that Corvette's unstoppable. So that means the Son of Blue Streak will be moving on to the next round.
Is that what that stands for?
Yeah, what'd you think it was?
Never mind. Up next, Kelly Culkin's dedication to the late Lemmy Kilmister. This Chevelle is called the Ace of Spades.
And she'll be going up against Randy Silvis and his red Lamborghini. We call this one the Lambo, and it is actually a conversion of an RC car.
Yep.
Oh, right off the line.
That's the fastest car I got, brother.
I'm going to have to work on that Chevelle a little bit for Kelly and get it to go faster.
Don't you dare.
All right, well, then that means that
Winner is the Lambo. On to the next round.
our next contestant is another car that comes out of my history. This is a 1976 Cobra II Mustang. It was owned by a buddy of mine named Bill Berlin. And this was the cover of the first record I ever did back in 1985. We ran around in that car when we were kids, and we called the car Charisse. And it'll be going up against Lewis Wingate in his Ford GT called Dank Nasty. I guess you can figure out why he named it that. GT definitely got the jump. Whoa, about a block behind that GT.
I thought she was going to catch her, buddy. I thought she was going to catch her.
Yeah, because that Mustang usually does.
All right, the winner is Dank Nasty. This car is as fast as it is elegant, and it's a local favorite around here. This black 67 Chevelle, owned by Dan Sack Andy, her name's Midnight Ride.
And she'll be going up against Randy's supercar. Another Ford GT. These are pretty popular amongst the 724. The Chevelle got the launch by a millisecond. Oh man, look at how close that was.
How often do you see a Chevelle beat a GT?
When you're running slot rods, that's about it. Well, yeah, I guess there was more room between the cars than I would have thought. When they're moving that fast, they looked a lot closer. The winner is Midnight Ride, moving on to the second round.
Up for race number 5. If a dragster could be a lowrider, you'd have this deuce and a quarter. This is a 1962 Buick Electra 225 called the Deuce.
Going up against Drew Hull in his 1940 Ford called the 8-Ball. These cars have a history, and this is the only grudge match of the day. There was an incident at the last test and tune at my house. Let's take a look here. Okay. Alright, as you can see, the Deuce got out of its lane. It just pushed that Ford all the way off the table. And you can see right here, it cocks sideways right there and just slides right in.
I thought the 8-Ball was going to be smashed after that, buddy. That was a pretty severe wreck there.
I think you were the one that was catching. Well, looks like the Ford, oh my, by a mile. What the heck happened? Let's see. Spinning.
Wow.
Oh,
Big spin. Big spin.
that might be the worst one of the day. What a disappointment. Those cars usually run toe to toe.
Our winner is the Magic 8-Ball, and he'll be moving on to the next round. Up next for race 6, Keith Bean and his Mopar funny car called the Cannonball.
And they'll be going up against the Grape Ape. This is a 1970 Cuda with large gears, 30,000 RPM motor, and a homespun aluminum frame. Let's get them to the line. All right, the Battle of the Dodges. Let's go. Dead together off the line. That Cuda was an experimental car, first race ever. I don't think it did too bad.
Tony, that Mopar matchup was, I think, one of our fastest races yet.
Well, definitely one of the closest. And you couldn't have told by that gap dog on it. Well, the winner is the Cannonball, and he'll be moving on to the next round.
First up for race number 7, it's Drew Hall racing again. This is a Chevy 2 Nova he called the Jolly Rancher.
Versus this white on green 1969 Oldsmobile 442 called Why Not? She's sitting on H&R wheels and Project X tires in the rear. Let's do it.
Oh no, was that a catastrophic gear failure?
Yeah, that's a pretty unmistakable sound.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. Huh.
All right, moving on to the second round. Your winner is Why Not?
This is a red 1968 Roadrunner, owned and operated by Tony Mollett, called the Red Runner.
Versus one of the original 724 cars, and it has all the scars to prove it. This one belongs to Randy, and it's called Sheldon. The Roadrunner definitely got the jump off the line. Ooh, and it just kept putting it on you. You were trying to come around.
Sheldon hadn't been running very good lately. I just kind of put him out there, and he put up a valiant fight then.
Yep.
The winner is the Red Runner, moving on to the second round.
Well, guys, I'm sad to say this is the last race, but I'm going to do something new and introduce my own car. This is a late 60s Chevy Impala, just laid out in graphics, and I call her AAA.
And this green-blue color change Chevy 2 Nova belongs to Michael Mack.
Whew, looks to me like she needs new floorboards.
Yeah, well, she's awful fast, and he calls it the Killer Nova.
Ready.
Oh, and the cold track wins again.
When you got no grip, you get all slip, buddy.
And that's what we've been getting all day. You know the best part about this being the 9th race of the first round? I don't have to look at all these gaps anymore.
No more ducks to send south.
All right, the winner is the Killer Nova, moving on to round 2. All right, folks, there you go. The results of one cold day of racing. All these cars will be going toe-to-toe in round 2.
The 18 cars we have today have already survived one round of competition, and them cold track conditions, I think they're finally starting to warm up.
Let's hope you're right. It'll make for a much better day. Well, there's only one way to find out. First up, it's Randy in the Lambo.
And I'll be going up against Louis Wingate in his 1966 Dodge called the Pineapple Express.
Oh, I think I saw that. Hold on.
I don't know. I think I broke loose.
There was definitely, the tires broke loose on the Pineapple first. Watch this. Tires break loose and then you gather it up. Or then he gathered it up. The Lambo, on the other hand, it jumps off the line and then the tires break loose. By the time you gathered it up, he was gone.
I think you're right. It did look like it. I thought I was laid off the line, but I guess not.
That means the Pineapple Express will be moving on to the third round.
For our second race, we have Michael Mack in his 1963 Shelby Cobra going up against Tony in his 1970 Stingray called the SOB.
This race was over before it started. Mike got an itchy trigger finger and he took off before the light, so this one was a default race, and SOB gets a free ride to the third round.
Race number 3 is that Crimson 67 Coronet called Big Red versus Brittany Wingate in that fast 82 Vet called the Phoenix.
Not too bad off the start, but that Coronet, that thing's set up for a quarter mile, not eighth mile. It was just starting to open up wide whenever it came across the finish line. So, winner is the Phoenix, moving on to the third round.
Yeah, next time you gotta switch out that pinion gear before you go out to race an eighth mile.
Yeah, whatever. Read your lines.
Race number 4 is Dan Sack Andy in the Midnight Ride versus Drew Hall in his 1940 Ford Gasser called the Magic 8 Ball.
Oh, that's not the Dan Sack Andy I'm used to seeing race. He's usually real quick off the line.
Tony, I think Dan may have been waiting on a pizza.
Yeah, well, I hope he got the 30 minutes or less special because it just cost him a race.
And the winner is the Magic 8 Ball. Up next,
Brittany Wingate in that badass blue 1966 Ford GT going up against Dan Sack Andy trying to redeem himself for that last race in his Gen 3 Camaro he calls the Silver Streak.
Dan comes off the starting line. That GT has some catching up to do, buddy.
Yeah, it was never going to quite get there, though. This has not been the day for the Ford GTs, has it?
It has not. I think Dan has redeemed himself.
Yes, I would say so.
Our winner is the newly redeemed Dan Sack Andy in his Silver Streak. Up next, we have Keith Bean in that deadly green and gold Mopar funny car called the Cannonball versus Dan Sack Andy driving for Tony Mullick in this Plymouth called the Red Runner.
Oh, I really don't think you could have came off the line fast enough to beat that funny car. There just ain't no way. That thing moves. I couldn't have drove it any better, Dan. Thanks for covering me on that round. And the winner is Keith Bean in the Cannonball.
Up next, we have another Ford GT driven by Lewis Wingate called Dank Nasty versus Elvin Kennedy in this 1966 Ford F100 called One Man's Poison. All right, let's race them.
All right, well, that Ford GT was a little bit much for that old truck. I'll tell you what, though, we get Elvin another set of tires for the rear of that, and it could be a whole different race next time around. All right, that means your winner is Dank Nasty. Moving on to round 3.
Today's been a pretty good day of racing, and we'll be back with what I have a feeling may be our 2 most exciting races of the day, right after this word from our sponsor. On to race number 8, this beautiful 69 Olds 442 called Why Not versus
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Everybody good? All right, we're ready. Why Not definitely got the jump. Ooh, Kelly coming around on the big end, though.
Oh, she's real close, buddy. I think she might have had it.
I don't know. She was definitely crawling up that quarter panel of that Oldsmobile coming across the finish line. Ooh, look at that.
That's close, buddy. Too close for me.
Let's see this finish line camera. Oh, by less than a car length. The winner is Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Well, folks, this is it. Our final race of round 2. Mother versus son. Michael Mack in his Killer Nova versus Kelly Calkins in Valentine. Let's go.
Hey. Ooh, Mike's definitely his typical fast off the line self.
Killer Nova ahead.
Oh, I don't know. She's doing the same thing 2 races in a row. She's coming up from behind.
I didn't catch it.
Ooh, I don't know about this. Hold on.
Perfect start.
Look at this synchronized finish. I have no idea.
Beautiful.
There's no way you can tell. Hold on, finish line camera.
Wow.
A bumper. Oh, Mike, how you gonna do moms like that, man?
Wow.
That's not right.
Wow.
Oh well.
That's the way racing goes.
Michael Mack going on to the 3rd round in his Killer Nova.
Get her, son.
Alright, well that brings us to the end of round 2. Pineapple Express, SOB, the Phoenix, Silver Streak, Magic 8 Ball, Cannonball, Dank Nasty, Beetlejuice, and the Killer Nova are all going to move on to round 3. The drivers have all drawn cards to determine the races, and round 3 will consist of the Killer Nova versus the Cannonball, followed by the Phoenix versus the Silver Streak, the Pineapple Express versus SOB, and Dank Nasty versus Beetlejuice. The Magic 8 Ball managed to draw the bye, and we'll get to set this round out.
Our first race of the day is Mike Mack and his Killer Nova.
That car has been the surprise of the tournament. Mike's had his ups and downs with that car all year, but he's really got it running well.
Versus Keith Bean in his Mopar funny car, the Cannonball.
Oh, Mike just 60-footed him.
I thought that Mopar was going to get him out of the hole.
Keith took him on the big end, watch.
Yeah, buddy, that Mopar got a lot of top end.
Let's check out that finish line camera.
Keith got him.
Out of car length. All right. Well, then that means the Cannonball will be moving on to the next round.
Next up, we have Brittany Wingate in her 1982 Corvette called the Phoenix. Versus Dan Sack Andy in his centerline design Gen 3 Camaro called the Silver Streak.
Looks like all Brittany all the way.
Yeah, you know what, Tony? Brittany's quickly becoming one of our toughest competitors in the 724.
Yeah, she got a real strong chance in this competition.
Woo! Like she got it.
Yep, winner is the Phoenix, headed on to the next round.
Up for our next race, we have Lewis Wingate in his 1966 Dodge A1 he calls the Pineapple Express. Versus Tony Mollick in his blue 1970 Stingray called the Son of Blue Streak.
Is that what that stands for?
Oh, you know it is.
Ooh, and the tires broke loose on the Express. Set him up for a bad gap.
That's all she wrote. The winner is the SOB, and he's moving on to the next round.
Moving right along, we have Lewis Wingate in his Ford GT he calls Dank Nasty. Versus Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Unreal. Almost took out the spectators.
I told you we shouldn't have said it 3 times. That car's cursed.
I'm just bummed out we don't get to say it 3 times in a row anymore. Alright, that means Dank Nasty moves on to the next round.
Okay, that brings us to our semifinals. This will consist of 2 races and a bye. First up, the Phoenix versus the 8 Ball. Second will be Dank Nasty versus the SOB, and the Cannonball draws the bye. Keith will be setting out this round.
Our first semifinalists are Drew Hall in the Magic 8 Ball versus Brittany Wingate in the Phoenix.
Ooh, double barrel shotgun launch.
Yeah, but Drew needed to be a little quicker on the trigger if he was going to beat that Corvette. Look at that.
Our winner is the Phoenix, moving on to the finals. That brings us to Lewis Wingate in Dank Nasty versus Tony Mulligan, the SOB. Did you see the fishtail on the GT? That's what lost him the race.
Oh yeah, you can see it kicking on him. I didn't even see that before. Good eye, Randy.
Thank you.
And the Corvette did what the Corvette does, baby.
Winner as usual.
I couldn't gap him though.
Our winner's the SOB. Moving on to the finals.
And that brings us to the final round. 36 cars came in, 1 car leaves.
The final round will be the SOB versus the Cannonball, and the Phoenix races the winner.
And then the drama ensued.
Yeah.
Well, you can't go by the tape exactly. The tape's not going straight.
Wow. So then who popped up?
I think the blue one has the tape first.
See, the tape's not even.
Isn't this where you agreed to race Keith for a second time?
Yep, and this is why coaches in the NFL always hate it when they have to kick a field goal twice.
You're ready.
And it was then the vet chose to shit the bed.
Oh boy.
Well, that's why they call it racing. Congratulations to the Cannonball, moving on to the final race.
And the winner of this race will possess the Crystal Skull for the next 12 months.
In a moment just before we move on to remember all the 36 cars that helped start this madness out.
For our final race, we're going to have Brittany Wingate in the Phoenix versus Keith Bean in the Cannonball.
Track and won.
Tony, we couldn't have had a more perfect ending to this competition.
Sure couldn't have had a more exciting one than Brittany Wingate coming across the finish line on 2 wheels.
She came dressed as the Queen of Hearts, and she left as the Queen of the Slots.
Hey, Brett, what do you think?
Like she just came.
Let's see it.
Chicken
I
dinner.
saw her jump the track somewhere over there, and I was just like,
That's one of your prizes. And that is the other one. The Olds 442 and a 64 Impala.
But most importantly, she won the Crystal Skull.
And she'll possess it for a whole year. Well, everybody, thanks for taking this ride with us. And we'll be back with plenty more next year. First, we're going to take the month of January off, and we're going to make some more episodes. And right around the middle of the month, I'm going to send you guys out a special episode of Into the Pit.
So until then, I'm Randy Silvas.
And I'm Tony Mollick, and you've been watching SLOTRODS.
Show respect, step back, no need for space invasion. Stop saying your room number at the day's end. Let the girl dance, that's really all she came for. $1 million dress probably came from the thrift store. Even though she seems to be exactly what you wish for, she's never coming in on your transistor. Don't matter if you're rich or piss poor, she's out of your league and in a different sport. The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. No sleeping allowed, yo, you just get a glance. Don't try to swim game, yo, just let the girl dance. The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. You can watch her soul glow from a distance, but give her some space, son, let the girl dance.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Randy Silvis,
And I'm Tony Mollick.
and welcome to Twin Lakes Park in a cold, miserable, dreary Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
Today's weather is the worst we've ever raced in, and the 724 faithful are dug in with heaters under the track tables and plastic sheeting over the windward side of the pavilion. The cold, wet weather hasn't been enough to dampen the spirits of the racers, and it's our honor to present to you the 2021 WPSRA Halloween Shootout.
These 38 cars and their racers are prepared to race for your entertainment. Today we'll be covering the first 10 races of round 1.
The 10 races we'll be covering today will be the Maverick versus the Lambo, Slick Trick versus Purple Blur, Magic 8 Ball versus Slick Willie, Kelly's Corvair versus Venom, the Blatzmobile versus Mean Streak, the Roadhog versus Beelzebub, the Judge versus Pineapple Express, the Wrecker versus the Purple People Eater, Undercover versus the Bumblebee, and Baby Blue versus Damien.
And next time on SLOTRODS, we'll be covering the second half of the first round. Hemi Thunder versus Zombie, Valentine versus Skyline, the 52 versus Pandora, Blue Dream 2 versus the Undead, Hood Rat versus the Panther Pink Charger, One Man's Poison versus the Triton, the Boss Nova versus Gone Green, Tangerine Nightmare versus the Batmobile, and the Panther Pink Dart versus the 724 Fuzz. The Fuzz? I didn't know we had our own police force.
Apparently we're the only slot car group with adequate police protection.
And they will all be racing for the coveted Crystal Skull Trophy today.
And that trophy is held for the entire year, and only the possessor of the Crystal Skull has an opportunity to unite all 3 of the 724 trophies.
Right now, Tony has the number 1 trophy for the 724 Top 10 list. Kelly has the King of the Tournament trophy, and if either of them would win out, they would have a legitimate chance to be the first by winning the 1 trophy they would be short.
So everyone, let's get this party started with the first of these 10 races. First up is the Ford Maverick. It was built by off and on again member of the 724, Ed Armstrong. It has a nice short wheelbase, and it's a good platform for building a fast car. versus Randy and his red Lamborghini he calls the Lambo.
This car was originally an RC car. I converted it into a slot car. It's nice and light, and all I had to do was put brushes, tires, and a tongue on it.
You can already see the cold affecting the tires on that Lambo.
Yeah, buddy, I fishtailed the whole way down the track, but I fishtailed into a wind.
And that makes it the Lambo moving on to round 2.
Race number 2 will be Drew Hall in the Purple Blur.
We don't know much about the Purple Blur other than the body is a modified Chevy Camaro SS Pro Mod style, and Drew's been wrestling with it for about a year now.
Versus Lewis Wingate, driving for the Mullock Racing Team in the 1951 Chevrolet called Slick Trick. Slick Trick's a turquoise Rat Fink inspired lead sled, and it's been number 1 around here for a hot minute a couple times.
Drew got off the line first by a split second.
Yeah, but by the time they got to camera number 2, Slick Trick was already coming around him.
And that makes Slick Trick the winner, moving on to round 2.
Good race, Lewis. Nice win.
Yeah, he drove the shit out of it. Next up is race 3, the 1932 Ford Highboy called Slick Willie.
Slick Willie's owned and operated by Michael Mack, and it's based off the old Shelby chassis. Tony, how much of that original chassis is still under that body?
Every bit of it. All I did was fit another body on it because we couldn't find another Shelby body. Versus Drew Hall and his Magic 8 Ball. The Magic 8 Ball is one of the 724 OG cards that's been around since 2019. And he's had a lot of luck with it over the past couple of years, and you can usually find it in the top 5. Well, there's something that you never see. The 8 Ball never runs that slow.
I've never seen an 8 Ball go that.
Which makes Slick Willie the winner by a mile and moving on to round 2. Which brings us to race 4. This race will be Tim Clark and his Torino called Venom. He's been running this car since he first got into the league, and it just gets faster and faster with every pass.
Versus Michael Mack, driving for Calkins Racing Team in Kelly's Corvair. Kelly's Corvair is a 1968 Corvair Monza and is on small tires.
Randy, I thought you showed great maturity in not saying driving for his mom.
Ready. Yep.
Nice start. That Corvair never spun a bit. You can see it stepping away from Tim right around the 200-foot mark.
Nice race, Mac. On to round 2 for you. Race 5 will be the 1965 Mercury Comet called Mean Streak. She's metallic green, and I particularly like the idea of painting the bumpers, effectively deleting them.
I just like the supercharger sticking out of the hood and the white walls up front. And what can we say about that 67 vet? We haven't already said.
Blast! Race 6 will be the 1973 Super Beetle Beelzebub, owned by Kelly Calkins.
Beelzebub is the current king of the tournament trophy holder and will be raced by Michael Mack for the Calkins Racing Team.
Versus rookie driver Jimmy Niederheiser, driving for the Mullock Racing Team, in the 1967 Chevy Impala called the Road Hog.
That's a virgin build, first time down the track. I have no idea what to expect.
Ready. Camera 2 ready.
3 and 4 ready. Okay, here we go.
What happened?
Brand new brushes, just weren't lined properly. Sorry, Jim. We'll get you hooked up better next time.
Race number 7 will be the 1972 Pontiac GTO called the Judge. Hey, that looks familiar.
It should. I landed the Big Chief for the race against the 405 in Season 1. His crew wasn't quite ready for the race yet.
Versus Lewis Wingate in his 1966 Dodge A1 called the Pineapple Express. The Express currently holds the number 2 slot in the 724 Top 10.
Well, there's something you don't normally see. Somebody gapping the Pineapple Express?
It could be the 48-degree rainy weather, or it could be the fact that he had his tires warming up in front of the turbo heater right before the race.
Good point. You never know how that's going to work out. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the ill. But either way, the GTO moves on.
Moving on to race number 8, we have the Ford Pantera called the One-Eyed, One-Horned, Flying Purple People Eater,
Or PPE for short.
This four-wheeled Muppet is the creation of Tim Clark. But don't let the looks fool you. This car's made some seriously fast passes.
Versus Drew Hall and his brand new build. A tow truck called the Wrecker.
Why would anybody race a tow truck?
Says in my notes here he's making some side money towing people back from the finish line when they wreck.
Unbelievable! Only on slot rods can you see a wrecker beat a Pantera in a drag race.
The Wrecker moving on to the next round.
On to race number 9. Michael Mack driving for the Mullock Racing Team in the 1970 Dodge Super Bee, aptly called the Bumblebee.
This is one of my favorite builds. I call the color Pearl Mustard Metallic.
Race number 9, the 1949 Ford Sleeper called Undercover.
I call her Undercover because nobody ever sees her coming. They only see her going.
Yeah. Everybody ready? Go.
And there she goes. Looks like Mike got caught napping, and he may be being traded from the Moloch Racing team.
Nah, it happens to the best of us. Besides, Drew was driving for me too.
Last but not least, our last race of the day. Tim Clark in the Ford Pinto called Damien.
I love Damien because of his black paint and silver studs. Makes it look like a heavy metal slot rod.
Versus the 1957 Bel Air called Baby Blue.
That's a brand new build and a green driver.
She ain't that green. She just stole the hit from Tim Clark.
That Bel Air was rolling. There was no catching her. Baby Blue will be moving on to round 2.
And this concludes our racing for the day. Next time, we'll be covering races 11 through 19, thinning the herd from 38 cars to 19.
But before we go, let's have a quick look at today's winners.
Hey everybody, I'm Randy Silvis.
And I'm Tony Moloch.
We'd like to welcome you back to the WPSRA 2021 Halloween Shootout. In this episode, we'll be covering the second half of round 1, races 11 through 19.
And this is the point where I'd usually read you the names of all the races, but you can read them yourself. Randy and I are still down with the laryngitis. We'd like to thank his kids for bringing that home from school for us. At the end of round 1, the 18 winners and one lucky driver that draws a bye will face off in round 2.
Okay, everybody, let's start this off with race 11. We have Xavier in the Ford Mustang called the Zombie.
Xavier's been racing this car throughout this past season, and it's made some fast passes and some slow passes.
Versus the 1971 Plymouth Duster called Hemi Thunder. This is a brand new build and its very first race. Lewis Wingate's driving it. Man, look at that grill. Does he know if parts fall off before you hit the finish line, you get disqualified?
Ooh, looks like he rolled across the starting line while trying to stage. Bad news is that's a jump.
Good news is the grill made the whole trip.
Hemi Thunder on to the second round.
Up next, race 12. We got Drew Hall in his Mitsubishi Skyline called Skyla.
Drew's trying out a bit of a new concept, and we're going to let him explain it to you. So, over to you, Drew.
Hi guys, I'm Drew. I'm from 724. I'm sure you all seen Magic 8 Ball and everybody else that I race. Well, I come to you with a special project. This is Skyla. You'll see her in the upcoming races here. Well, this Skyla's chassis here is something I've been working on off and on for a few years now. Skyla, as you can tell, is a little bit different from all the rest. She has full-size tires front and back, and then there's this weird thing that goes through here. Well, Skyla is an all-wheel drive setup that I've been working on for quite some time. As you can tell here, if I spin this front pinion gear. Goes the whole way through to the rear one. Well, took a lot of modification to this chassis here. As you can tell, it's an old Edge chassis. Cutting out and extending the guide. It took a lot to get her to where she was at. I had to get some stock in that fit the pinion gears that everyone's used to. I had to find a way to connect them. I found these nice little brass connectors on here. I'm also running a little bit smaller motor. This was only a slight test and tune, I guess we'll say. Trial by fire. But I wanted to let everyone see it. This is just showing that there's always room to advance in our little races that we do around here, and it keeps it interesting, keeps it fun, and keeps it entertaining for everybody. Well, have a good night.
Thank you, Drew, for that interesting segment. And he'll be going up against one of the original OG 724 cars, the 1955 Chevy Nomad called Valentine. Valentine's normally driven by Kelly, but today it's going to be driven by her son, Michael Mack.
Go.
Well, wasn't the greatest pass, but at least he made it all the way to the end.
I'm not going to talk any smack on him, though. Knowing Drew, he'll work it out.
For race 13, we're going to see a face we haven't seen in a long time. The 1972 Chevy Chevelle SS called Pandora. This Chevelle is owned by Kelly Calkins and is making a special appearance in this race and is being driven by Michael Mack.
Versus Tony Mollick in his 1952 Ford called the 52. It's black, it's short, it's fat, and it's fast.
Pandora don't look too shabby for not being raced in a year and a half.
I don't know, Tony. Looks like you got him about a half car length. By about the 500-foot mark, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to wait any longer in a 600-foot race. And the 52 lives on into round 2.
Race 14 will feature Tony in his 1966 Ford Galaxy 500 called Blue Dream 2.
I'm running Paul Gauge urethane tires on the back of the Ford now from SLOTRODS. They're made by a guy named Paul up in Canada, and he makes a huge variety of these great urethane tires. And SLOTCarCorner.com carries them here in the States, and you can get them even cheaper from them than you can ordering them from the man himself.
Those rear tires are made to fit the narrow H&R front rims, right?
Yeah, they're 12 millimeters wide, but they're 30 millimeters tall, making them a big tire. But I can get them tucked up underneath them wheel wells.
I see. And he'll be racing Xavier in his 1961 Ford Falcon Ranchero called the Undead.
The Undead is painted Xavier's black and violent green color scheme. It's usually pretty fast.
And another close race. Looks to me like Xavier got you fresh out of the hole.
I started coming around him right about at Drew's elbow.
Yep, and then you clipped him right at the finish line.
On to race 15, the 1932 Ford Rat Rod called the Hood Rat. This was the first time I ever chopped a roof on a car. I took about 1/4 of an inch out.
Looks like she's been raced a few times.
Oh yeah, and she's also racing with those Paul Gauge tires. Those are a different size. They're fatties, they're about 30 millimeters tall, and they got treads on them.
Yeah, they do look a lot wider.
Yeah, they're set up to take the Pro Track rims.
Versus the Pink Panther Racing Team's Panther Pink Dodge Charger.
That is actually genuine 1971 Mopar Panther Pink paint. It's from a company called Automotive Touch-Up, and they have genuine paint colors for just about any make and model car ever put out.
Boy, you're doing a whole lot of advertising in this episode, aren't you?
Well, it doesn't do any good to keep the information to ourselves. We may as well pass it along to everybody. Besides, you never know. May pick up a sponsor someday.
Oh, another perfect start. But that 32 got out about a car length and held it.
By the finish line, he was barely holding on, but the Ford got it.
And the Hood Rat moves on. Race 16 features Xavier in his 32 Ford called the Triton. Hey man, that's 2 32 Ford races in a row.
Well, everybody got to have a 32. That's the most popular body style ever to make a street car out of.
Maybe we just need to find out who has the fastest 32 in the 724.
Ooh, I like the way you think.
Versus the 1955 Ford F100 called One Man's Poison. This truck made its debut in the second annual Halloween Shootout, but went out early. Let's hope they have her lined out a little better this year.
Well, we put new back tires on her this year, and they're yet another size of the Paul Gauge tire. And these are the drag racing slicks.
And those tires are also meant for the Pro Track straight hubs.
Yeah, you're gross.
Oh, that race was all Xavier. But the truck did look a lot faster this year.
And the Triton moving on to the second round.
Race number 17, pulling into the home stretch, we have the 63 Chevy wagon gasser called the Boss Nova. We've seen this car pop up at a couple testing tunes. I can't wait to see her get down.
If anybody's familiar with the Boss Nova gasser model that I used to make this, you'll know that it comes with a big hole in the roof. I filled it in to make a hard top. See if you can spot where it was.
Versus Ed Armstrong in his 1940 Ford gasser called Gone Green. Hey, that car'd be perfect for the 420 races.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to want to jump that beautiful thing. That Ford was gone. And he was running those Paul Gauge tires too. He's running the same ones as the 32, the fatties with the tread on them.
Yeah, I need to get me some tires like that for my Lambo. Think they got them in my size?
Oh, I'm sure. Hit slotcarcorner.com and look for your size, man. They're in there. Matter of fact, whenever I was looking for tires, they actually helped me find my size from the description I gave them.
On to race 18. First up, the number one car in the 724 top 10 list. The 76 Vet driven by Tony Mollett called the Batmobile.
Versus another OG 724 car, the Tangerine Nightmare. She's a 1970 and a half Camaro and she has a lot of battle scars, but she's completely updated and ready to make some noise again.
Looks like you were having the nightmare.
Why's that?
Because you were asleep at the line?
No. Yeah, it doesn't matter how fast the Batmobile is if I don't do my job.
True that. Tangerine Nightmare moving on. And that brings us to the last race of the first round.
Thank goodness, my voice can't take too much more. How you holding up?
I don't know, but I know I'll make it through this last race. The Pink Panther Racing Team's 1968 Dodge Dart. So why all the trouble to paint those two Mopars real Panther pink?
I did it for October, being Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You'll see those out every October from now on, I'd say.
Versus the 724 Fuzz. This is a Tim Clark build, and it's just dripping with old school dirt track cool.
Number one ready.
Got the light.
Oh,
that was.
Looked like Tim stuck it so hard it blew the front tires out of the slot and lost power.
And that makes the Dart the 19th and final winner of the first round.
And here are the winners from the first 10 races.
And here are tonight's winners.
Welcome back to Slot Rods. I'm Randy Silvas.
And I'm Tony Mollett.
Welcome to our 2021 Halloween Shootout second round.
We're going to have 9 races and a bye in round 2, and Triton is drawing the bye. At the end of the day, the 10 cars left will be moving on to round 3.
Our first race is the blue 1932 Ford called the Hood Rat.
Versus the Ford called Gone Green.
Oh, looked like the Willies jumped out of the slot.
This was a disturbing trend we started to see as the day went on. The tire, track, and air temps combined to play hell with traction on these cars all afternoon.
And of course, the temps didn't get any warmer as the day went on. 48 degrees and steady rain, ain't no kind of weather to be racing in, but you can't tell these drivers nothing.
Race 2 is Randy and his red Lamborghini called the Lambo. Versus Kim Dionisi in the 57 Chevy Bel Air called Baby Blue.
Oh no, I think Baby Blue spun a gear.
That was only that car's second pass ever. Well, we'll get those gears figured out for her.
Lambo moving on to round 3.
Race 3 is the 72 GTO called the Judge.
Versus Drew in that crazy tow truck called the Wrecker.
Ready.
Looks like the GTO got out about a car length, and Drew just couldn't close the gap.
And the Judge moves on to round 3.
Race 4 is my metallic green 65 Mercury Comet called Mean Streak.
Versus Michael Mack driving Kelly's Corvair.
Well, I blew that at the line.
What happened?
I wish I could tell you. I was definitely slow on the trigger, that's for sure.
Yep, and not exactly the car you want to be giving a head start to either. Corvair moving on.
And we're moving on to race 5. We're going to see one of the OG 724 cars, a 70.5 Camaro called Tangerine Nightmare.
Versus Michael Mack's 32 Ford called Slick Willie.
Finally, somebody messed around and a drag race broke out.
We're gonna have to go to slow-mo on camera 2 to figure that one out.
Well, that wasn't much help, but camera 3 shows Slick Willie finally managed separation just before the finish line.
And that's Slick Willie moving on to round 3.
Race 6 will be the Panther Pink Dart versus the king of the tournament trophy holder, the Volkswagen called Beelzebub.
And this is exactly what we were talking about. This phenomenon knocked some of our fastest cars out of the race.
Alright, you'll see here in slow-mo that the bug's rear end broke loose and fishtailed to the left.
And then grabbed and shot it to the right. And that brought her right up out of the slot.
And it was wash, rinse, repeat for the rest of the day. Damn shame, but worked out for the Panther Pink Dodge. Moving on to the 3rd round.
And now race number 7. The 51 Chevrolet called Slick Trick
versus the 49 Shoebox Ford called Undercover.
Hey, why ain't that Chevy's front wheels touching the ground?
Whew, if they'd have noticed, she'd have been disqualified.
How the hell did it stay in the slot?
I don't know. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, I guess.
Well, good or lucky, that's Slick Trick moving on to round 3.
Okay, Randy, rounding 3rd and headed for home.
Who's up next?
It's race 8, my 52 Ford versus the 72 Chevy called Pandora.
Pandora? Ain't that the chick with the box?
I'm not touching that.
Man, we've had 2 kinds of races here today.
Yeah, a dead heat or a dead car.
52 got the whole shot. Pandora tried to close the gap, but that Ford just walked away from her.
And that means that little 52 is moving on to round 3. And now the final race of round 2.
Tony's 66 Ford Galaxy 500 called Blue Dream 2 versus Kelly's 55 Nomad called Valentine. Hey, where's Kelly at? Ain't she supposed to be here?
She'll be along before the end of the day. She's just running late.
Well, you hung on for the first 60 feet.
Yeah, I think it's about time to go with a little bit smaller pinion gear, get that big old Ford off that line a little faster.
And that means Valentine moves on to the next round.
And these are all of today's winners moving on to round 3.
And the Triton will be moving on as well. He should be ready, having this whole round to have worked on his car.
Next time on Slot Rods, we're going to show you the conclusion of this Halloween shootout.
And for those of you who just joined us, it's a cold, rainy, 48-degree southwestern Pennsylvania October day.
And entering round 3, here are your competitors. It's been quite a surprise, but the fastest cars in the 724 have already been taken out of the race.
The phenomenon of the cars coming out of the slot at the starting gate has been confounding racers all day.
So, without further ado, let's get to the top of round 3.
Race 1 will be Slick Trick
versus Randy and his Lambo. I'm not saying that you didn't have a chance,
but we will never know, because the guy running the trigger, he was sleeping on the job.
That's a shame, because the car made a hell of a pass.
And Slick Trick's moving on.
Race number 2, we have Michael Mack and Slick Willie
versus that beautiful Panther Pink Dodge Dart.
Well, here we go again. That's just brutal. What could be making them do that?
Slick Willie gets a free pass and moves on to the next round.
For race number 3, the Hood Rat.
Versus that 72 GTO called the Judge.
Not this again. That's 2 in a row.
Yeah, you can see it in the slow motion. The Ford lurches to the left, and the Pontiac just comes completely unglued. That shoots her towards the center.
Hood Rat moving on to the next round.
Race 4, the 55 Nomad known as Valentine versus Tony in his black 52 Ford.
Holy shit, a drag race broke out.
I don't know, looks like Valentine's pulling ahead by the time they got to camera 2.
That she was. Valentine wins and is moving on.
Moving on to race 5.
Kelly's Corvair, driven by Michael Mack,
versus the Triton.
Looks like Tim had it all the way.
That's not a typical run by the Corvair.
And that takes the Triton to round 4.
Round 4 will be Triton versus Slick Willie, the Hood Rat versus Slick Trick, and Valentine draws the bye.
First up, Triton versus Slick Willie.
There's that anomaly again. What the hell can that be?
I don't know, but about 90% of the trouble has been in the right lane.
And that's Triton going on to the semifinal round.
Next, Slick Trick versus the Hood Rat.
Yeah, definitely something on that right lane. We cleaned it, we checked it over, but it was just a gremlin all day long.
Slick Trick moving on to the semifinal.
And now, the semifinal round. Triton versus Valentine, and Slick Trick got the bye. And look, Kelly Calkins is driving Valentine.
Oh yeah, this is where my camera battery ran out and we had to use your Soviet Union surplus phone for camera 1.
That's alright, we'll get double duty out of camera 2.
Kelly didn't take long to warm up. She wore that 32 Ford out.
Kelly Calkins is moving on to race Slick Trick for the Crystal Skull.
Well, Val didn't have any trouble on that right lane.
Don't know about that. Watch camera 2. Kelly stuck it so hard she put the Nomad on its back bumper. Wheels in the air for 600 feet.
Yeah, sure enough. She left with the hood pointed at the sky. How did she even keep the brushes touching the rails?
For that matter, how did it go straight with the tongue the whole way out of the slot?
Looks like the front end on Slick Trick was bouncing down the track as well.
That makes one of the oldest cars in the 724 the Crystal Skull Trophy winner for the 2021 season, and she will carry it throughout the 2022 season.
2021 Crystal Skull Trophy, and the prize goes to Kelly Calkins and Valentine.
Thank you.
OG Cars took it this year.
That was awesome. Thank you, guys.
The women of the 724 never fail to put on a show. Last year, Brittany won the Crystal Skull coming across the finish line on 2 wheels.
Yeah, the 2 on the passenger side.
And this year, Kelly Calkins wins it by riding 600 foot on her rear bumper.
Well, Tony, it's been an exciting yet frustrating day. I wonder what could have been making the cars jump out of the slot the way they kept doing.
I don't know what to tell you for sure, but if it's this cold and raining out next year, I can already see drivers adding weight to the front ends of the cars before they ever get here.
So what's up next for the racers?
The next time we get together, it's going to be a shootout of the 724's fastest cars to determine who will be going to race against the Street Outlaws this year.
Why don't we just take our top 10? Ain't that what the list is for?
Our last top 10 race didn't include some of the usual suspects from the top 5. I want to make sure we only take the absolute fastest cars we have because Oklahoma isn't coming alone this time. They're bringing their friends from Memphis.
Right on. Well, folks, that's it until next time.
Until then, I'm Tony Malik.
And I'm Randy Silvis.
And you've been watching Slot Rods.
Show respect, step back, no need for space invasion. Stop saying your room number at the day's end. Let the girl dance, that's really all she came for. $1 million dress probably came from the thrift store. Even though she seems to be exactly what you wish for, she's never coming in on your transistor. Don't matter if you're rich or piss poor, she's out of your league and in a different sport. The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. No creeping allowed, yo, you just get a glance. Don't try to swim game, yo, just let the girl dance. The answer is no, you ain't got a chance. She's out of your league, just let the girl dance. You can watch her soul flow from a distance, but give her some space, son, let the girl dance.
Hey everybody, I'm Randy Silvis.
And I'm Tony Malik.
Welcome back to Slot Rods, and welcome to our 3rd annual Halloween Shootout.
This year we have a heat of 38 cars, our largest showing yet.
Yeah, and you know what that means, don't you?
No, what?
A lot of ducks.
On top of that, we got a lot of new builds by some new drivers, and they're bringing some new gear combinations with them.
And that means all the current gear combos that we're using right now are going to change. So it's just free-for-all out here right now at the 724.
I expect to see a lot of familiar cars going out early and some fresh faces moving on into the later rounds. Either way, you're going to see 38 cars become 19 today.
All right, so let's get racing.
First up, the 1940 Ford called Bootleg versus Race Charger called Death Metal. All right, we're ready.
Well, Tony, looks to me like Bootleg just booted himself straight into the 60-foot marker, making Death Metal the winner.
Round 1, race 2, all the way from Florida. My brother Taz in his double-stack 65 El Camino called the Tazinator versus the Gen 2 Trans Am called Flamethrower.
Looks to me like Taz was spinning coming off the line.
Yeah, that's a brand new setup and he's still getting used to it. But you'll be seeing more of the Tazinator later this season.
And that makes Flamethrower your winner. Round 1, race 3, we have a turquoise blue challenger called John versus Jimmy from the 724 in the Bug.
John fishtailed out of the hole like a trout swimming upstream.
And that makes Jimmy our winner.
Round 1, race 4, my 1966 Ford Galaxy called Blue Dream 2 versus the 1984 Chevy truck called Blue Bayou.
Oh, and Blue Bayou spins a gear at the start, giving Blue Dream 2 the win.
Round 1, race 5, my 59 Chevy Stingray Gasser called Prince versus Kelly in her Corvair.
Yeah, it looks like Prince got the jump on Kelly right out of the hole. And that was all she wrote, giving Prince the win.
Yeah, the vet spun a little on the line, but she grabbed and just took off.
Round 1, race 6, we had Ray and his other Charger called the Sleeper versus the 66 Chevy called the Millennium Falcon.
Falcon got the jump, but Ray came around him at about the 100-foot mark.
Yeah, the Falcon tried to come around him on the big end, but just ran out of real estate.
Round 1, race 7, Jimmy and Dirt Givafukin versus Tim and Venom.
Venom got the first half a car jump on DGF, but that Volkswagen caught pavement and started to put the spread on that Ford,
giving DGF the win. Round 1, race 8, from the 412, the Gen 1 Firebird called Marble versus Xavier from the 724 in his 61 Ranchero called Rambunctious. Camera 1 on.
Oh, Marble was sleeping at the light, and Rambunctious took the win.
Round 1, race 9, the drag truck cab over Pete versus Michael Mack in his Red Runner.
Red Runner got the jump, and then something went wrong.
If you look quickly at the top of the screen, you'll see the Red Runner get out of his lane and get right in front of that truck.
And got rear-ended clean off the track.
Cab over Pete drove straight through that Mopar.
Yep, and didn't even slow down.
Watch the Red Runner defy the laws of physics after he gets hit.
How did he not end up off the table? Round 1, race 10, Mike Trumpy from the 412 in the Z28 called McMullet versus Tim Clark from the 724 in his Tri-Tower Tri-5 55 Chevy called Wicked.
Camera 1 is running. Flashlight.
And the 724 takes home another win. Round 1, race 11 is Bane from the 412 versus Poison from the 724. And Bane dies on the starting line, giving Poison from the 724 an easy win. Round 1, race 12, another 412-724 matchup. The yellow 55 Chevy called Badman versus the newly rebuilt Batmobile.
Camera 1 is up. Ready. Somebody give me a light. Light. Somebody give me a light. 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 Light.
Badman got out in front right away, but the Batmobile might have caught him at the finish line. But not quite. If you'd had another 100 feet, you'd have beat him. And that's Badman for the win. Are you sure these races are pulled at random? Because here's another 412-724 matchup. Up next, we got Rob Trumpy in his Oldsmobile called Bob versus Michael Mack in the 52 Ford.
Camera 1 is on.
Ready.
Oh, Mike was sleeping. The Oldsmobile took the win. Round 1, race 14. From the 412, we have Cameo versus the OG 724 car called Slick Trick.
1.
I got the jump on Trumpy, and he started coming around me, but I held him off till the finish. And you were lucky. He almost caught you. And the drag racing gods have spoken again. From the 412, we have the Smurf, and from the 724, Valentine 2. Looks like the Chevelle got the jump. Oh, they were neck and neck at the finish line. Oh, I don't know. Let's see that finish line footage. Oh, just got the Smurf by a bumper. Round 1, race 16, from the 412, the 55 Chevy, and from the 724, Kelly and her Good Vibes Beetle. Now that's a drag race. Looks like the 55 was leading by the halfway point. But here comes that bug doing what it does. Good vibes by a nose. And finally the spell is broken. 2 cars from the 412, Annette Kane in the Eliminator versus Rob Trumpy in the Snake. Ah, there's another great drag race. Looks like Annette pulled away from him at the midway point and took the win. Up next from the 412, the 66 GTO called the Jackalope versus Annette Kane's Porsche 911 called 911. Oh, that Jackalope is bunny quick. The 911 was closing in on him at the end, but Jackalope for the win. In our last race of the round pits the 724 Red Reaper against the Bandit from Atlanta, GA. No, that's the Bandit from the 412. But it looks like the Bandit from Atlanta, GA. But it isn't. On. Old Reaper's out first, and the Bandit was closing in on him, but Tim held him off. Giving Reaper the win. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how 38 cars become 19. And next time on Slot Rods, we're going to show you how 19 cars can become one. So until next time, I'm Randy Silvis. And I'm Tony Moll. Hey everybody. Welcome back to Slot Rods. I'm Randy Silvis.
And I'm Tony Mollett.
And welcome back to the conclusion of our 2022 Halloween Shootout. Last time we were together, we took these 38 cars and raced them down to 19.
And tonight we'll take those 19 cars and race them down to 1. Round 2 will consist of these 9 races with Flamethrower pulling the bye.
First up in the left lane, we have a Fiero called Poison, and the Stingray Gasser called Prince in the right lane.
And the Fiero gets the jump.
Wow. Looks to me like you were trying to come around him on the big end.
Almost got him too. Fiero moves on to the next round.
Round 2, race 2, we have Sleeper versus Rambunctious.
Ray got the jump and Rambunctious just didn't have a chance.
Round 2, race 3, we have the 55 Chevy called Bad Man versus the 51 Chevy called Slick Trick.
Good.
Boy, we are drag racing today. All these races have been pretty close so far.
Oh, ran out of gear. Ran out of gear.
Bad Man got off to the quick start, but Slick Trick reeled him in and came right around him at the finish line.
And gapped him too.
Round 2, race 4 will be the GTO called Jackalope versus the Tri-Tower Tri-5 55 called Wicked.
One's good.
Boy, these drivers are on it today, buddy. That was a great start.
But Wicked began to separate immediately.
Wicked by a bus lane.
Round 2, race 5, we have Death Metal versus Cab Over Pete.
One's good.
Cab Over Pete got the jump. That race was all red.
Round 2, race 6, the 54 Chevy panel wagon called Valentine 2 versus Annette in her Eliminator.
2's good.
Oh, that, folks, is what you call a spun gear.
Kelly's face says it all. That's the first time that car did that in 3 years of racing.
Up next, the Volkswagen delivery van called Don't Give a Fukin' versus Blue Dream 2.
One's moving.
Cool, the Volkswagen took off like a bullet.
Round 2, race 8, Tim and the Reaper versus Kelly and her Good Vibes Super Beetle.
One's good.
Camera 2 running. Running.
Tony, I'm surprised that car beat the Super Beetle.
Round 2, race 9, we have a correction to make from the last race. I accidentally called Bob an Oldsmobile. He's actually a Buick Skylark.
Versus Jimmy in the Bug. Bob got the jump, but he got outrun in the first 60 feet.
This separates the men from the boys. Round 3 and everybody's getting faster.
Round 3, race 1 is Wicked versus Death Metal.
Looks like Wicked met his match.
Yeah, it looked to me like Timmy was real late, so we'll never know how he could have done.
This should be a close race. Brother versus brother. Dirt Give a Fukin' versus Sleeper.
Now that's a drag race.
It just isn't an episode of SLOTRODS until you say that, Randy. Looks like Jimmy clipped him by a car length.
Round 3, race 3 is the Eliminator versus Poison.
Vero got out first, and Annette could just not close the gap.
Round 3, race 4, we got Flamethrower versus Slick Trick.
Best drag race of the night.
Looks like Slick Trick managed to separate about the 300-foot mark.
Didn't manage to stretch him out to a whole car length, though.
Round 3, race 5, we have the Bug versus the Red Reaper.
Camera 1 is running. And Jimmy got the jump.
And that was all she wrote for Tim.
And here's your final 5. Death Metal versus Poison, Slick Trick versus the Bug, and DGF gets the bye.
First up, we got Poison versus Death Metal.
Up next, the Bug versus Slick Trick.
That Bug pulled away like Slick Trick was standing still.
Our semi-final round, we have Ray in Death Metal versus his brother Jimmy in the Bug. And because Jimmy owns both Volkswagens, the bye was determined by a coin flip. Finals. Camera 1 on.
Ray was way late.
Bringing it down to DGF versus the Bug for the final. Are we ready down there on the end? Are we down there with the light? Camera 1. Camera 2. Camera 3. Camera 4. Yep.
Oh, DGF got to jump by 2 car lengths.
But the Bug managed to take him down before the finish line and gap that microbus by 2 cars.
And our 2022 Halloween Shootout champ is Jimmy in the Bug.
Here's the Bug in front of his trophy and his 2 Dodge Viper bodies that were given as a first place prize.
Folks, that's going to be it for us for this year. We're going to go on our Christmas break, and we'll be back in early 2023 with more great races and a lot more surprises.
So until then, happy holidays to our friends around the world. I'm Tony Mollett.
And I'm Randy Silvas.
And you've been watching SLOTRODS.
She got so much style, it's ridiculous. The type of girl to witness all the wishes. All the bitches call her vicious, cause she got that something that they all are missing. Type of girl to make your mother main. Make a straight girl wanna trade to the other team. Take a loyal man and foil his plans. He'll destroy his whole fam just for demands. And she won't even notice, she's focused on some bigger things. A lovely lotus as a bonus, she can trick a fang. Fall at her feet, it's a solid defeat. But the call of the beat is all that she seeks. She relies on a butcher for eyeballing meat. Only goes to the club for the $5 drinks. Even though she ain't paid for one yet, she ain't teasing. And she just ain't trying to leave the dance floor for no reason. Let the girl dance, don't interrupt. Nothing less than Patron in her cup. Gawkers all around, stalkers in the...
Now that's a drag race.